see. And welcome everyone. We were sort of challenged by my father to make some of these sort of birdhouse ornaments. So that's what we're gonna try. They were just to really sort of a little natural edge bowl, very small, on top of a little hollow part. So it's kind of something right up my alley in a way. But they're very small. This piece block of wood is only about 4 inches long. So everything to do with them is small. So we either make them really quick or really much more difficult. So we'll see how well it works. But they are still a natural edge, and you get that center very well. That's okay. We'll make do. Looks like I'm pretty good that direction. So like I say, it's pretty much just like a little natural edge bowl, so it's nothing spectacularly different for me. I mostly use this small bowl gouge. It's about done for, so I've got a new camera too. Didn't try to do something now. Oh, no. Don't do that.
Me said.
Okay, now we're good. I wasn't sure whether I checked that or not. So like everything else, we'll start out nice and slow. Get off to the side. Bring our speed up a little bit. We're definitely not going to get any real vibration out of this anyhow. It'll help to tighten the tool rest down. This is a piece of dogwood. It's kind of reddish in color. And it's very hard. I did a tree the other day or so, a couple of weeks or a week or so back with it. And like I say, it's very hard, so I don't want to make this too small. Would like to get a little bit off of there, so we got more there than we do there. So we do have to move that a little bit just to try and even it up a little bit. Not that it totally makes a whole lot of difference, because it's thicker over there than it is there. I think we'll just spin around here and give us an idea on where we're going to go in here. It still shows, well, I have 4 pieces of this to play with, so, and I have more of it actually, too. So I think we'll just leave it at that. The problem with these is going to be is that we're going to end up changing jaws around, be able to do some of it. But the outside here, we're going to use our normal jaws on it. So I need to set a tenon size for that. It should be right about there. The smaller they are, the harder a lot of this stuff becomes in some ways, mainly because of the shape. And just like if we were working on a big bowl, we're going to get rid of the corners. Let's stop, take a look at it. I probably could have went right to the small jaws. Yeah, this gives us a pretty nice shape. So I want this to be totally round at the top, which is going to be the part that's probably going to be more challenging than anything. I can make the pennant longer than what it needs to be, for sure. So like I say, I want it to be round. I want it to be a total dome shape. So this might actually be the kind of the harder part of getting this right. But I might as well put our tenon on while I'm there, so I know what I'm doing there. This might actually be one of those times where I'm going to actually go sort of the wrong way, just so that I can get the shape that I want. A little easier to see it. And then I'll come back and clean it up, coming the other way. That most likely raise some grain. Also, I left it flat out there. Can't have that either. This tenon will all go away. It's just trying to visualize the curve going the whole way up through there is kind of the little bit the challenging part. Okay, that's that. Mark is probably not going to stay on this because it's not quite going to do the trick. Now I screw with a 10 and I got to square that up a little bit. And now I'll just sort of shear, scrape out there a little bit. That's all being done with the spindle gouge. And also get rid of some of this crap in here. Get rid of that razor blade edge. And that's probably good enough for now because this thing will get flipped around. Really get flipped around twice. So we can get out from between centers. And just use the steb center on that time because I don't want to drive. I want to drive the 4-prong drive in there and create big deep grooves and things in there. So little steb center does the trick. Hopefully we didn't make that. Nope, we're good. Yeah, looks like we're still pretty good on our camera. I got a new camera. I got the ObSpot Meet for this camera that's looking in this direction. It's actually a 4K camera. It looks like it's pretty good. As always, we change something. We're going to step off to the side, bring the speed back up. This we don't need to, really don't need to do too much as far as step goes. But it will be thin. This is the object. Went down to about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm sure the bark is not going to cooperate on this. Definitely won't once we get thinner than that. We're down to about 1/4 right now. So we'll take it down some more. I'm also going to get my other bowl gouge. I have a cute little 3/8 inch bowl gouge. Probably, you'll give it a quick touch up and make sure. Don't think it's quite what it should be. This also has the 40-degree grind on it too, which will give me a little bit cleaner cut up in here. And it's smaller, so I won't push so hard on it for one. So that's about what, I think that's about what we're going to leave it at. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick. I think that's probably good. We'll get rid of some more material here in the middle. That's right, I don't want to get too rambunctious in there though. I need to put a tenon in there. So I think we're going to have to just sort of flatten that out just to give myself some room to move out here. It feels pretty good. Tiny little ridges right there. Looks like we should back up and make just one tiny little cut. I really don't want to sand in there. Not that that really felt a whole lot better. And I still left some ridges. Because I'm not sure. I guess I can sand in there. I probably can use a 1-inch pad. Like I said, the bark is definitely good. Let's say it definitely won't stay on. So we'll just get rid of it right off the bat. It'll still give it the same effect as far as that goes. So it's been quite some time since I've had these jaws out and used them. I think they grab about 1 inch. Somewhere thereabouts. So we're gonna need to know where that's gonna be. That's gonna be our tenon in there that we're gonna grab a hold of. So I can use my parting tool as ground at the angle. I'm going just a little ways, and we'll just keep. I think what I'll be doing is keep removing some material here to get to that point. And just keep making that tenon deeper, and then we can trim it down. Like I say, this is certainly not a real exacting science here. This is kind of like the first time we've ever tried one of these. Now we're probably actually going to need a little. We could go a little deeper, I believe. There's a place that it would be nice to actually have the other 3/8 gouge has the 40-degree grind on it, so I'm not really overly interested in changing, keep changing it back. One of these days I should just up and buy another 3/8 inch bowl gouge. I'll just take this, turn it the whole way down. Till we meet the bottom. And we certainly don't need that to be that long. Still feels like it's feels like it's flattening out in there. So let's think about this a little bit. Can I get in there with this negative rake scraper? I can. It has a burr on it. Let's try that once. That sort of feels better. That makes me happier. Yeah, I think that'll work. I think, trying to think what I want to do on the first one. I'm pretty sure I can't get in there with the, I think I can get the 2-inch pad in there to sand that now. So we're going to have to go to the 1-inch pad. And also might be the challenge there, that is, to find it. Oh. Obviously, that's not the right discs for it. I thought I had a set of them out that actually had the numbers on them. How about the other 2-inch disc? For some reason, these doesn't have. I think when you get these little pads, they don't necessarily have the grit on them. You have to write it on them. Somehow or another, I threw them in the drawer and didn't write them on there. I don't think we might try that first. It would help if I got the right chuck key though for that. Or do I just have, I have a second one of those somewhere. But I've got the chuck key, so we're in good shape. So we'll just try try the 2-inch pad first. It'll make it easier. Then I won't have to, that'll be one less thing I have to screw around with. Always put things away, that way I don't have to, that way I'm not chasing them. I do have them pads out. So we got 120, 180, I don't have a 150, but that's okay. Don't think we really need to go to 120 either. I think we'll just go with 180. Let's see whether it's going to cooperate. Go the right way though. Not really. What I was afraid of. It's just a little bit too big in diameter. So we're going to have to go back to the little 1-inch ones. This 1-inch hold or disc even has such a tiny little shaft on it. It's got like an 1/8-inch shaft on it to go with it. I don't quite understand why their philosophy, what their philosophy is on that, but another one of them deals that makes sense to some engineer somewhere. So now we get to guess as to what the paper is. I'm going to say that's 120. You know what's on there. Who knows? But it feels like it's sharp. This stuff, this sandpaper for these, I don't know. I don't know if they get hot that quick or what they do. They just kind of disintegrate. They lose their thicky on the back. So let's start with a new one. This is a nice soft pad though. Yeah, a little more gentle with it. Just trying to get rid of the tool marks. There is some in there, unfortunately. Even though this is the underside of it. And really, unless somebody's nosy enough to turn it upside down, which they will, something like this, I'm sure. I would put it that way. Okay. So that one we know is 120. Just make it real easy and get rid of those. Get my little marker. Mark these while I go, so that if we do more of these, we'll know what they are. Like I said, I don't too often use these little discs, primarily because I really don't particularly care for them. So that was, first was 120. This will go to 150. They're not going to spend a ton of time on these. But nice sharp sandpaper does work well. Therefore, we're not going to go to 180. I normally go 150, 180, but we'll just go to jump right straight to 220. Put the number on it. That's always the fun part when you get this. And like I say, I didn't do that with these for whatever reason. Normally when I buy that stuff, you just take the time right off the bat and sit there and pull them out of their pack and write the grit size right on them right from the start. Does make it a little easier than messing around with what we're doing right now. So we're going to do 2 more grits and we'll call that good. That was 220. Actually, I even have 280. What do I have 280? I forget. This came as a kit. Way too many. I don't know why you would want 280, but that's my buddy Vince from Vince's Wooden Wonders. That's where I got this from. That's where I get most of the sanding just from. I've dealt with him for years. He's a fellow UPS. Well, he was a fellow UPSer. He retired. Lucky guy. Lucky guy. Me, I got a little over 3 years to go before I can do that routine. These would be rather challenging to sand by hand. So I don't think I'd want to try it. The outside might be a different story, but the inside definitely not. And I don't even really want to try and spin it. Because as small of a disc, I'd end up catching it. So we're going to call that good enough. That's 400. I was really confident in what we were going to do. Then I could finish it right now too. But we're not going to do that. We're going to take it off. Take the chuck off. Switch to the smaller jaws. These are the detail, kind of like finial jaws. I don't remember what they actually did call them. So we start with number 1. It's been a while since they've been off, so they're good and tight. Make sure all the dust and dirt would be out of there. Just snug them up a little bit there. Get the other one in. And I definitely don't crank down on them. They tighten themselves up quite well. As you can see, they're not very easy to get out. Actually, there's sometimes that you have to get the bigger Allen wrench after them. Especially when you don't take them off very, you don't change jaws that overly often. Especially on this, well, especially really any of them now because I have three of the bigger chucks. So them jaws are pretty much going to live on there. This chuck here, though, I have I think 4 different sets of jaws for it. So this one does get removed and from time to time. Number 3. These are the long nose jaws. That's what they were called. I'm trying to think what Vic Mark called them. They're a long nose jaw. Really nice to do like finials and stuff like that, because it gets the material out and away from the chuck. It makes the life a little easier. So that's that little job. So now that, if I measured right, we're going to be in trouble if I didn't. Oh man, that's really close. That has the chuck almost completely closed. So that should have been a little bit bigger than what they are. I have to keep that in mind for the next one. Well, we're not worried about it for the moment. Now we're going to get rid of this. And then we'll try and make a base for it. Slow down. It should, if we did everything right, it should spin pretty daggone true. It looks like it does. Of course, now we'll get to find out whether we left ourselves enough room in here. Well, I want this to be like umbrella shape. I don't necessarily want it to be pointy now. Still looks pointy. It is. So since it is dogwood and it's very hard, I should be able to scrape it and refine that shape a little bit. And it'll be more gentle out here. So it's definitely not perfectly true because I'm getting a little bit of a undulation right there. But I also really can't get out there and cut. I like to get rid of that little ridge. we go. Let's get rid of most of it anyhow. Can't say that it got rid of it all. That's okay. The last little bit can be sanded. So now it looks like we have a fairly good curve. Well, it looks like this one wing is actually lower than the other one because I never went back and checked that. Well, prototype number one. So now back to sanding. But you know what? We can sort of cheat on that one a little bit. We can go to 3-inch disc if I think we can. And we should be able to spin it. I'll still use the soft pad though. We'll go in reverse, slow it down a nice slower speed. All the ugly marks are gone. Except we just put 120 grit scratches in it, but that's just life. We'll get them up now. And we should be running the dust collector. Let's see if that doesn't totally block that. No, not quite. looks like some really bad. The only downfall of using 120 on some of this stuff is you probably shouldn't have. Kind of leaves some really nasty scratches right there on the end grain. Get rid of them. We'll just go right through the grits. Make sure we get across that center part. It's hardly moving. Oh, touch with the fingers. Good. All that sanding, even though it's a natural edge, there's plenty of sharpness out there on the edge. For sure. And that's got to sand it through 400, which is good enough. More than enough. Dust collector can be shut off. Now the fun part. Up until now, it's just a little itty bitty bowl, basically, with a tenant in there. So now we get to try and match that tenant. And what did I do with the little block of wood? This block of wood is most likely big enough to do probably two of the bases. We'll have to go back between centers on this part. I'll make this round, give it a little bit of a tenant. This is just a sort of a half-assed mark the center. It really doesn't matter because we're going to make it round. It's also where it would be nice to have different jaws for that, but that we're not going to do. We're not going to screw around changing jaws every 10 minutes. So we will just deal with it the best we can. And use a little stub center. Should mark the points, make it easier. Get rid of the hose. And we did bump the camera, didn't we? Let's just widen that out a little bit. There we go. Do have the capability of moving. Oh no, what did I do? Oh, we hit something. Hit escape and turned everything off, closed everything up. That's never good. 1 short second. Come on, Mousy, over here. That was exciting. So let's open that up and go. Come on. Wide is too wide. That'll look good for the moment. What we're going to do is make this round. Oops. Yeah, this new little camera has a few more bells and whistles than what I'm used to. It's got controls to be able to zoom in and out and move it around. And we need to turn this into a cylinder. This is a piece of white birch, I think. So it'll be fairly soft. Forward, bring the speed up. And you use a skew to make it round. Make very short work of it. I'm sure we're not round yet. Still not. We're still not. Not quite. A little flat spot in there. Did we move the tool rest up high enough? Maybe. Now we're to the round. The other half of the round. Tool rest needs to be a little bit higher on it than what it is. But a little bit further down around the side than what I want to be. And be a little extra careful. Okay, now we have a round cylinder. Still a little bit tiny bit there, but that's okay. Don't need to worry about that. We're nowhere close to being straight on the end. I don't think that's necessarily going to matter either. Let's see how long this is. This is about 4 inches long. So if we did split that in half, I'm sure that's going to be too long. Because with those 4, let's look at one other little thing. And we'll do one of those things that most people tell you not shouldn't do. Shouldn't bottom out a piece of wood in the chuck. I'm not sure these will actually go open far enough. If they will, they will. Beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna do the super cheat move. I do need a square end because that way it'll sit on the base of the chuck better. So we'll square up one end of it. And that'll be good. Knock the little razor blade edge off. Now, get rid of our stub center. And then we'll do the lazy man's way. And put that end in. Like I say, it's sort of going to sit right on the bottom of the chuck, and we'll see whether it's going to be true enough, which I'm sure it probably is. Good enough, because we'll just true it back up anyhow, a little bit. And Kind of surprised it's not running a little bit better than what it is, but I think a lot of it is just, a lot of it's the optical illusion. Maybe not so. I'll just make it true again. Somewhat true. We definitely need the end to be straight. And we'll get rid of the razor blade. We're also going to need a point in the center. It's a small one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and use a Forstner bit for at least some of it. Actually, would probably be sort of advantageous on a project like this to make the tenon and a Forstner bit match one another. But we didn't do that, so we'll just make it smaller than what it is, which is probably going to be like 3/4 of an inch rather than an inch, because I don't imagine, I guess I have enough material to actually just try it. Yeah, it's under an inch. Of course, use my ruler. These little, yeah, it's about 7/8. So it should have been more like the 1 inch, but that's okay. We can deal with it. Just creates more work. So we'll just drill it on the lathe. Put that over there. So now we have a center point. I'm going to slow the speed way down as we're drilling into end grain. Bring a point up, and then I lock the tailstock. That would have been a good idea to actually get an idea how deep to drill, but like I say, this is just kind of like the wing it kind of thing. And now I've seen people do these, but I guess I just never really paid that much attention. This is just a kind of a challenge of my father's, because he was making some of them. He's like, you need to make some of these just so I can see how you would do it differently than what I did. So, okay, that's not very deep. This is going to be an inch and a half, I think. What I think about, maybe 2 inches, 1 3/4. Anyway, let's just drill a little deeper than what we are. So we'll bring it back into the hole. And then we'll go down another 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch, something like that. And make sure you're hanging onto the chuck as you back it out. Because you can always do what I just did right there and not pay attention. I literally backed it out. That has self-ejecting on it. And if I wouldn't have been hanging on to it, you would have got to see some excitement because it would have came off. So now, we've got to try and fit this into that hole. And hopefully that's big enough. Perfect. And we need a handle for that. Almost makes it look like I know what I'm doing. Definitely, if I was so minded to make a bunch of these, I certainly wouldn't be doing it in the fashion that I'm doing with just do one top and then one bottom. I would do it as sort of a production kind of a thing. Maybe do a bunch of the tops together and then do a bunch of the bottoms together, or match the bottoms to the top. I know the guy that demonstrated it on, I think that was on the Wednesday night group. I think we're a little high. That's what he did. He used, I think he used a 1-inch Forstner bit, something like that. Used that as his gauge. But so I now want this to be a little bit concaved in there. This is just a negative rake scraper. It'll do a wonderful job doing just that right there. It's for doing like lidded boxes. Of course, it always helps when you can actually maybe see what you're doing, but this is all going to be by feel. I could have did set my dividers to this. At least close. So that shouldn't. Take the face shield off for the moment. Not quite. And I don't really have a ton of room to make this. What I could be doing is making this tapered, which is what you would do for a lidded box. Make it tapered, a tapered fit, so that you're not doing what you just did right there and make it totally too big. But now at least I know where to go to. So now I'll just go behind that. And come in and make it just so it doesn't make it. And then we'll just take it down. Now if we're really lucky, I'm gonna drop on there. No. You can really see where the Forstner bit would make this a whole lot easier. Not necessarily going for the super snug fit. It will get glued on there, but it has to fit well enough. And it's extremely hard to figure out how much to take out too. It might help. Like back up around. And remove a little bit of material here. Now you put the toe rest up too high. If I make that taper down a little bit, it might help me. Might. Because I could be hitting out in there too. I don't think I was, but so more out. Make it a taper. No guarantee that that tenon is anywhere close to being straight in there either. So in theory, the taper doesn't fit, so now I can come back out and square it out to the taper, make a new taper. And now that actually fits onto the taper. So now all we have to do is straighten it up. Or at least get it close to being straighter. Now that'll work. So of course to me that looks like that's considerably bigger around the birdhouse part. What it needs to be. So I'm going to work on sort of shape that a little bit more. You can do it with either with any and all of the above. You could do it with a spindle gouge, you could do it with a skew. We'll probably do a little bit of both. I'll probably start with the skew though. And trim it down a little bit. Make that sort of round into that part. And we probably should really figure out how long we want to make this. And more importantly, how deep did we go? We went down to there. We're hollowed down into here. So no matter what, we need to come down in somewhere in there. And there's plenty of wall thickness in here right now because there's probably an 1/8 of an inch step in there, which you can sort of see. So I think we're going to finish out somewhere down about there. So let's go to our spindle gouge. We're going to say down in there is maximum. Somewhere down in about there. That is probably I don't know, it doesn't really look, I'll take a little bit more off, but it doesn't really, doesn't remind me that it's really too fat. But it probably is. It will sort of give it a little bit more of a taper. Down to there. It's always fun to do the design as you go. Sort of teaches you something, I think. I think it. To me, my opinion is that it looks proportionately correct. This will get turned completely off down there eventually. Don't want to go too thin. I probably shouldn't have went as thin as what I did already. Because I'm going to come back around on this side. Because I want this to be, you know, this is an ornament, so I want it to be as thin as possible. You know what? I made that. I should have used a 7/8 inch drill bit. Oh well. We have hollowing tools to take care of that. So we can do it that way. Just as easily. But I should have, like I said, I don't know why I was thinking, I forgot there was a 7/8 inch drill bit in there. That would have made more sense. This little hollowing tool, this is actually a homemade one. It is good steel. This is actually a blank that I had got from Thompson, 1/4 inch blank. So it's just been grounded at an angle, flattened out on the top. But it'll do a nice job, hollowing wise. You're not going to take any giant size cuts or anything like that, but and it's going to squeal because it don't like the overhang. Actually, when it comes right down to it, I could use, wasn't thinking along those terms. I don't really need to mess with the little hollowing tool because I do have a negative rake scraper, the D-Way negative rake scraper that's going to allow me to get the whole weight in there. And it shouldn't squeal at me. And I'll be able to hollow a little bit more, because right now, which we did know that, our line is down in there. So I can get down in this part more so, a little bit more. Like I say, I want this to be light. I don't need this to be, necessarily need to be paper thin. Helps if there's a burr there though. So we'll put like a little micro burr on it. See if that helps it. If not, we'll have to go to the grinder and grind it. I'd say we're going to have to go to the grinder. That side has a burr. Not really. Or do we have tool rests too high? That's what I did there. I just scratched a little line. I'm pretty good on that. The scraper has to have a burr on it in order to cut. I'm going to have to go put a burr on it. I messed up my camera over here earlier today, so I didn't get back to changing that. So because we're working hard on my granddaughter to be her dresser. That's most of the day was spent. Yeah, you made that too. That's a kind of a rookie mistake. I should have left this part back here at full diameter, because now it's gonna squeal at me and carry one. So we're about 1/8 of an inch thick. That certainly could be a whole lot thinner than that. I'm just going to work on getting some of this out down here at the bottom. And we really should put that in a handle. Get enough overhang on the tool like that. These are not very heavy to start with, so it's giving it the advantage. So it wants to pull it down. And see how the other end of this is actually sort of has been sharpened. I really don't want it to grab a hold in there and come up and bite me. I can see whether I'm on the center line. I'm not. You need to come up just a hair, because it has to cut on center in there at the bottom, or it won't cut. This is strictly by feel. And of course, you can't see anything. Also, can't seem to get underneath the center point. Fingers are too big to get in here. I just want to make sure I'm not getting carried away. I could actually drill a hole for the perch, or for the hole and the little perch. That would also help me figure out. I think what I did was get too. Maybe I'm not. And of course, don't reach in there when this thing's spinning. Might have adverse effects on the fingers. So we've gotten some depth out of that, I think. Yes. We're down about there. But it also feels like we're still pretty thick right in there. So I'm going to go down a little bit further. Lovely, lovely sound they make. Like I said, if you were smarter than the average bear, you would have left the material in down below, this material right here, and then it wouldn't have squealed so much. But I think we're going to call that about good enough. This is, like I say, this is white birch, so it's already very light and soft. So I think that'll work. Just kind of have to figure out, probably put the hole. I guess put the hole right about there. And then we'll put the little perch about there. Yes, we can grab the drill. Put it away. That'd be really neat if you could actually find some little miniature birds, but I've never had any luck finding any really, really tiny ones. So 1/4 inch, I guess, for that. I didn't ask my dad what size drill, but he was using. And not tear the other side up. The perch will be a toothpick. I think that's what I used last time, but I can't tell you how big a toothpick is. I do happen to have one here, so we'll measure it a little bit and see what size hole will make it fit. Well, I know 1/8 is too big, way too big. 1/16 is too small. Goes through a 5/64. So our toothpick will go through there and we'll be good. And not leave the toothpick in there because I had it in my mouth. It'll swell up and I won't get it out. Confucius once said I should have drilled both of them holes before I did the hollowing part. I'm going to go back because that drill bit just left a really ugly part in there. So hopefully that cleaned that up, most of it. At least it don't look quite as ugly as it did. It certainly could be a lot thinner than what it is. But if I keep messing with it, I'll just keep making it worse. I think. Like I say, prototype number 1, so now we're going to give it a sand, or sand most of it anyhow. I started at 220. I'll go to 320. Four hundred, 600, and 800. Now we will take our spindle gouge and we'll finish cutting that off. We'll flip it around, make a little jam chuck out to be able to finish off the bottom. And I want to take it sort of down to a point. And that'll be our little birdhouse. If I was smarter than the average bear, I would have put a little mark up there or something, because I'll need to put a little screw eye in up there. But first we got to finish off this little bottom piece. So now we need a little jam chuck. And we'll probably spend too much time making that. Do want a little more material out there to work with. And definitely need this to be flat. So we can mark it. Somewhere in about there. Parting tool. Another one of these places where if I'm going to make these, I'm going to make it a particular size, so that I'm not screwing around with this kind of stuff for each and every one of them. Like that. I just want it tight enough that it's going to stay on and not break it, of course. Could even be a little bit tapered, I guess. And you know what, that's not, needed to be a little smaller in there. You little bugger. Really, all I needed to do is to hold it well enough to sand that last little bit on the bottom. That'll work. That'll work. Probably tight enough that I can actually cut it a little bit. Make that a really nice, super sharp point down there, which I won't leave it super sharp, but so now I'll just finish sanding it. Lastly, a little bit of random orbit sanding. That's good. Give that a little spin around to where it belongs. And that's what it will look like. A little bit off there. I don't think that I really don't want to put it together. I need to finish it, so I think it'll be easier to finish in two pieces than it would be to shove that on there. So I think I'll put my gloves on, and we'll go ahead and finish it. We'll use our typical Parfix 3408 on it. So it'll make it nice and easy to do. And we'll widen things out a little bit. Now we'll just fold our paper. I'm not going to use felt in there. I just fold it up nice and small into a nice little tube. Use the end that doesn't have any fuzzies on it. Can't really read it, but you got to take my word for it. This is the Parfix 3408. So I might as well do the bottom piece first. That's why we have a glove on now, because I guarantee you can stick this thing fast to your fingers in a hurry. So just give it one nice coat. End grain's going to soak up more, so we'll get that quicker down there. And just rotate it around. You can see how quickly it sticks. Probably couldn't hear it, but it was sticking fast to my finger. Let's set that down. Get any excess off of it. This birch just drinks it up, so there's really no excess. I'll just sit this over here on the workbench because there's not enough. I wasn't sloppy. I didn't go down over the end. I'll tear that little bit off of that end, and then we'll do the house part, or the top part. I'm not worried whether I get some on this tenon down here because I probably will use super glue to glue it on, so it'll be fine. Try and get the edge fairly decently. It's the other thing with this dogwood. It's very close grain, and you see it doesn't really soak it in like, well, definitely not like the birch did. Didn't quite get that edge there. And if I leave it apart like this, come tomorrow I can actually buff this thing, which will give it a really nice shine. So we'll just do the top side. Quick and easy. Like I say, definitely not a place to do it barehanded. Could let it sit there longer on it, but I got other things to do. Don't drop it. So that'll take care of that. It's got a little white spot in it. Give it a little extra character. So we'll just sit that off. I'm not even going to use any activator on it. Right now, this time of year for me, there's more than enough humidity down here. It'll set up in a matter of a couple minutes anyhow. So that will be our little birdhouse ornament. I can't say that I'm gonna rush into making a bunch more of them. I do have four more blanks for the tops already made, or the top already cut. I could probably never really tried to hold anything of any size with them, but I guess there's only one way to find out. Should hold it. Got to put a few things away. So I can bring the light center back up. Set that for an inch. So these were, I don't know if that's the right one. Dogwood, or at least the dogwood that I have. Oh, that is the right one. That's the match. Doesn't, as you can see, it's not a circle. These branches sort of grew flat, which kind of makes it a little kind of like advantageous for what we're doing right here. So we'll just put that in our trusty little center point. I did use the small one that time. Could have used the big one. It doesn't really make any difference. And make sure that we're on the right page there. Looks like we are. Could bring. This is where you start trying to play more with this camera. Like I say, this is the. I have it on narrow. So I can move it in a little bit. And then we can come in with that one away. And that's going to give you like the up close and personal look. See if I can make you dizzy. So, nothing more than a natural edge bowl. I'm going to try and line up these two top points. It actually looks close enough to start. See if there's anything left on my little bowl gouge. So we'll definitely back to our face shield. This is where pieces of bark are flying and everything else. So we'll start out nice and slow. Bring our speed up. Like I say, you could turn these at whatever speed you wanted to because there's so little. Just get rid of the corner for the points. And we'll stop and take a look at it, see where we're at. More so to see whether I am on track with where the top of the bark is at. Looks like we're pretty daggone good this time. So we still need to get a little bit more off of it because we weren't totally round. And probably on these, see, I haven't taken any out of there, taken some out of there, but there's less in between there than there is there. Let's take some more off and see where we go. Now I'll start to make it a curve or a taper to the bottom. So we have it that much, and we got less there. So that means this has got to come a little bit that way. Once again, I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference with these. That would actually, in some ways, maybe make it more interesting. The Live Center doesn't really like that, but okay, it's closer. Because if we have less on one side, on this side, that could be the front. There's part of the little bit of the pith that's left in there. So now we can shape it. Live Center doesn't like that when it's not. I can't really put enough force on it, I guess, to. It's not sitting totally flat against there. So that's why it's giving it a little bit of a chatter. So, where tiny bit smaller than that is going to be where our tenon's going to be. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use my spindle gouge because I can get in there nice and tight. I'm going to flatten that out a little bit. Make our tenon. I think we want it a little. I'm not quite. I'm not flat. I'm still sort of flat out there. Just about. Dark streak. So back to our bowl gouge. So that's pretty much it there. And since this stuff did such a nice job scraping earlier, just use my negative rake scraper on it a little bit and just sort of refine. I got some little bumps and ridges out there. This is just kind of being, in some ways, being lazy. But also in the same token, it's a little hard to get to some of those places. We'll make sure this is nice and clean. And we'll just leave that little shoulder right there, right where it's at. And that should be good enough, because this will get, once we get there, we'll be grabbing it from the other side where it'll make life a whole lot easier. I say I didn't. I could have did the other ones while I was at it. We're just going to make this one, and we're going to move on to something else. I have trees to make, so I really need to get moving on them before I get fired from my job before I even start it. We'll see whether we made this tenon the right size. We did. So that should. It does. Let's say if I did things right, it should have been running nice and true. So we'll go back to our bowl gouge, and then probably we'll go back to this small bowl gouge. But it's just a little bit gentler on things. It'll make me be a little bit gentler, put it that way. I don't need to get rid of the bark because it's not gonna, I'd have to leave it really, I don't know if they would look right with that amount of bark on them, or that thick. I think it would kind of make it heavy. So I think we'll try and take another little bit out of it. I probably left marks in there. Not too bad. That bark is staying where it belongs. We're down to maybe about a fat 1/8 of an inch there. So I think we'll try it. Leave it like it is. I'm going to have to switch back over to the 60-degree grind bowl gouge. I should have one in here that's sharp. Let me look. Yeah, I think. I sharpened all this stuff up. We had a club event the other night. I'll try it once. Because I know the little one, this dogwood's sort of hard on the cutting edge tools. And I know the tool rest is going to be too high because now it's going back to a 1/2 inch bowl gouge rather than the 3/8. Nothing else, we'll just go sharpen it, but it seems like it's pretty good. And you're about ready to get carried away. We do need a tenon in there. Good thing you thought of that. You'd be in trouble. It's kind of a cheater's way of making it. I don't really like sticking them in there like that. So I think that's about our inch. And we're going to need our little parting tool. Get it the right way. Certainly isn't going to be a whole lot to hang on to on this one. It did go a little deeper than what I intended to. That should work. Question is, can I cheat and do it? Let's not say we did. My little scraper get in that corner. Not really. Thin parting tool will do it now. Not necessarily worried that it's not going to be much of a dovetail. Just needs to be nice and clean in that corner for the chuck to register on. And that should take care of that. It did leave a nice ridge in there, but that our scraper can get. That should have cleaned that up nicely. Now I'm going to take my little parting tool and go back in here one more time because I left there's a little bit of a ridge in there, and I'd rather them jaws sit on the base of the bowl rather than on a little ridge. Still a ridge in there. And I guess there's no time like the present to actually sand that. So we'll just take the couple minutes out. Just getting rid of the tool marks. I'm not really worried. There's still some little marks down there right up against that tenon, but the base will take care of that. Or I don't know what you want to call it, the globe part. Problem with doing things of this nature, it takes too much time for what you're going to get out of it. Projects like this are probably almost better off just to give it away, because if you put a price tag on it, chances are nobody will pay it anyhow. So that's the inside. So let's see how we did. That's a nice, some of the bark has fallen off, but not all of it. Go the right way, it'll help. I'll be amazed if this even sits close to being true. Well, I did something right because it runs pretty much true. That's a miracle. So then we can finish the outside. That's nice and thin right there, I can tell you that. You can hear the sound difference that tells you that it's pretty thin. So I guess I think not. I was thinking I could leave a little knob or something on top of there, but I think not. So this time we're going to be smart enough to make the center point. I'll just use a punch. Try and hit dead center. And we'll leave a little hole there that I can drill that out at a later date. The other thing you notice, I didn't take and try and put my pencil point in the middle. I started out here and went in there. It makes it a whole lot easier. I've been watching some videos with Richard Raffin, and he talks a lot about doing that. And I'll tell you what, that's about as simple as you can get, and it works. It works quite well, as you can see. So now we can just give it a sand. So we'll spin her in reverse, slow the speed down. It would help if we turn the dust collector on though. I sanded enough that my marker's almost gone. I'll make that a little deeper, or I won't know where it's at. That takes care of that. Now the question is, yeah, I'm not going to mess with it. Like I say, I have some other things that I should be doing. Number one, I actually have a couple half decent sized bowls that I should be working on before they totally crack into pieces. So I think I'll do one of them and then we'll call it a day. Move some things out of the road. Put some things away. Because we will make some chips fly. Next is the one I was going to do. A good size. So the bigger jaws yet. I'm going to grab this with the worms, the wood worm screw. I already have the hole drilled in it. We will have to move some cameras around because we went from itty bitty to good size. Widen things out there. And we will see. Let's put this one first. Forward. Put that out of the road. This will thread itself. And you just let it go. Stop. And then we'll lock the spindle and we'll finish tightening it up that way. Come on, stay locked. That'll work. This is a piece of the white birch. Whether it's got any real character to it, I don't know. It's sort of punky along the edges. So it's definitely going to be a shallow kind of a bowl. We'll see. So we're going to need a little bit longer tool rest to get this job done. We will bring our live center up. I see a lot of people do this kind of thing with the worm screws and such without the live center. I'm just not one of them. I mean, it's secure enough, but if you do something really out of whack, why things could go awry in a hurry like that. Just a little extra pressure. It's going to sink in there because that stuff's, like I say, half rotten. This is one of the times where you definitely are going to stand off to the side to start it. And we need to move some cameras. where you won't be able to see nothing. So bring that one over there. And that's pretty much out as far as it's going to go. I'll tell you what we're going to do. So don't. So if we go wide and back out there, can we move it? I'll just do it manually. That'll work. Gives you a good idea what we're doing anyhow. All right. I'm going to start out with this bowl gouge I've just been using, but it's probably this yucky stuff out here will be hard on the edge of it anyhow. So we're not going to get a whole lot of, not at all, because we got to get this back into some sort of balance. So I'll just start by getting rid of this corner out here. And we'll be doing a lot of stopping for the moment. Like I say, this got a lot of rot to it right here, which will peel right off. And then we can start making a little bit of a shape. And as you can see by it spinning when it slows down, everything is still quite unbalanced. I don't even bother anymore. I've sort of started not. The other thing you could do, you could make this round and then come back to this part, but I find it forces me to concentrate on shape. And just because it's a half-inch bowl gouge doesn't mean it won't take a fairly good sized cut, especially on something like this that's soft. So let's go in here and get rid of some more of this junk. You have to remember it's on the high-speed pulley too. As you can see, I was able to slow it down because they're just being just a tiny bit aggressive there. So we'll just go out here and be a little bit nicer to it. We're just about round up there. Close. But we know we got a bunch more to take out here because we got some, this is sort of punky areas. This is sort of would make a, probably like a shallow salad bowl maybe. You can see how soft it is. You can peel it right off with your fingernail. Always trying to get a little extra out of it speed-wise, but it's not having it yet. Primarily because we need to get welcome aboard there, Vintage Soul. So we got to get below that. That's crappy stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to get rid of the crappy stuff so we can figure out where we're going to go from there. That's basically, it's an unsupported cut. I'm cutting right up here on this wing, or behind the nose. So it's not going to give me a clean cut, but it gets rid of a lot of material in a hurry, which is what I'm after right at the moment. Now I should be able to get back in, take some more off the bottom. just still a little left. Just getting better. But you can sort of see, maybe, not really too much light. You can see where I went from the unsupported cut to a bevel supported cut. It's nice and clean to cut up in through here. That's still super soft. If I can stick my fingernail and put a crease in it, that's too soft a material. It just won't hold up. There's a wood chip on it? I don't see any. There must be, though. I can see that. Makes a blurry spot. I think we got her now. Thank you. I think right there, I think we're getting below that. They can be both. They can go quite deep. This one's not going to go any really much deeper than what it is there. It's actually starting to rot is what it is. This tree was dead when they took it down. That's why they took it down. So it's just a little bit of a rotted area right there. I'm going to come back out here and clean the rest of this rim up so that we know where we're going to. There's one other little detail is to knock a little bit of that off. Because that, once I cut completely up over there, that left me a very sharp edge. Could even take a little bit more of it off so that I knew exactly where I was going to on the top, but I think we can live with what we're at now. Now I am going to get rid of the tailstock because I want to work down here on this very base. And now the tailstock won't be in my road and I can make a push cut the whole way up and around, which will give me a nice clean cut from top to bottom, or from bottom to top. Get rid of this little nub. this will want a fairly, since it's going to be more in a line, yeah, along the lines of a salad bowl. We'll probably leave a pretty good size foot on it, so that it has a wider base to sit on. And switch to the 40-degree gouge, if I can put my finger on it. It'll allow me to cut a little bit cleaner out in that area. At least it should. Get the tool rest around here where we need to be. There's still a little bit of that evidence of that soft spot left. See how we're doing shape-wise. Could be better. How big is our foot? About 4 inches, so that's actually just about right. And that's actually the jaws that's on there. I think they're about 4 inches. Now we finally got it into balance, so we can bring our speed up. We'll make the cutting go a little quicker. I'm trying to give it a little bit of a swoop back out, but I didn't go in deep enough the first time. So I'll need to make one more little cut, and I just gonna make that flare out a little bit. That's kind of a bit of a traditional look for the salad bowl type stuff. And a little too deep. Come That's more what I was looking for. Did leave some little ridges in there, but that's okay. That's what they make sandpaper for. This will come down a little bit, so there won't be quite as much of a swoop up there. But it's cut cleanly, which is the important part. And we can come back here and put our tenon on. You can flip it around and hollow it out. I probably won't want to leave that tenon on there as part of the bowl, but I might. But I'll just go in here and clean some of that away. And I can make that decision sort of at a later date. Can do just a little bit of shear scraping up across there, just to clean up those ridges. Anything we can do to make the sanding less or easier. Even though that's leaving some little ridges in as well. I'm mainly looking, now my eyes are looking up here, and to me there's a hump right there. So that's what I'm working on getting rid of. I want the line to be nice and flowing. And hopefully with this birch it didn't pick up, no, it did pick up grain right there. That's what I was afraid of. Some of these really soft, then this, like I say, this is a white birch, so it's very, very soft. So it started to pick up the grain right there, which would cause a great deal of sanding. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go sharpen these two gouges quick like. And then I'll make a final pass up across there. Which it should be a nice clean cut with a sharp tool. And it'll clean up that area where the grain picked up because of the shear scraping. Not all woods like to be scraped. Wood has to be very hard for it to actually be scraped. If I was to take the negative rake scraper or even a traditional scraper to something like this, it usually will just tear it to pieces. Now, probably to get in there, I'll probably use a 60-degree gouge because it'll allow me to get into this corner a little easier. I still won't be able to get totally into the corner, but I'll at least get better than what I would with the 40-degree gouge. a hump, left a ridge right there. There's our spot somewhere. A little bit, tiny little bit left there, but that'll be fine. Much of this, we're going to probably lose another 1/4 of an inch up here. I can always come back to that once we hollow the inside out, which is where we'll go from there. It's on the worm screw, so now it's the old challenge of getting it to break loose, or probably just knock the chuck off. It did. That's one of the reasons I don't necessarily like the worm screws, because I end up doing just what I'm going to do right here half the time with them. They get on there so tight that it takes a wrench to get the screw back out. Maybe I still need to go up one more size and drill bit size too. Would maybe help it. So let's see if I did what I think I did. And that's not going to work for that one. Nope. They're bigger than, it's bigger than 4 inches. Thought it was a 4. So we'll go down to the next size that I have. And hopefully it's not too small. Which is probably not going to be the size that I want it. It's going to be open considerably further than what I want. Damn. So we are going to have to use the big one. Now we need to do things the right way and not just say, well, it should be 4 inches, which obviously it wasn't. So we'll measure it about where we want it to be. It's considerably further out than what I thought it was going to be. So we'll just put our worm screw back on and probably fight with it again. But we'll just remount it back into the same screw and it'll work. And it probably should run relatively true. Probably as true as what it did the first time. So let's turn the speed down. Yeah. So we're fine there. So now we need to remark a tenon. So our tenon needs to be out that size. It's not really the way we should be doing this. That means we'll get rid of this. And we'll mark our center point while we're at it, because we might need that down the road. And cut this tenon just a little bit deeper. And I'm going to leave that foot there, or that ledge there. I do need to undercut that a little bit. Parting tool don't always get you undercut. I usually will go back with a spindle gouge and make sure that corner in there is nice and clean, because that's where our grip strength comes from, is that little tiny little ledge in there in the corner. Now we can, hopefully, since we didn't turn too much on it, we don't have to get the wrench back out. There. A lot of times it just unseats the chuck is what it does. So now, we'll put junk in there. Gonna put it in where the grain's running up and down with the jaws. And then we'll tighten it up. And what did we do? How did we do that? Did you not mark that? Come on. I don't want that foot to be that big. Ah, I didn't get a good mark with the dividers. Son of a gun. Tell I don't use this chuck very often with them giant sized jaws on it. We'll just get rid of everything. I hope. I certainly hope so. Yeah. Yeah. Center point. May or may not need a center point back in it, but it's always easier to have it. There's still a way in. Could have been bigger yet. Slow her down. Running true enough. That's definitely too tight for them, for the jaws. They're almost touching. So that, I don't really have the grip on it that I would necessarily want to, but I am not going to recut it again. So we'll true up the face so that we know what we're doing, where we're going with it. Especially out here at the rim, which left us a razor blade sharp edge right there. Knock that off. Because you see what I did, I put my hand up there right away. And if you don't take that razor blade edge off, you'll find out how sharp it is. And it is not very nice, not very friendly. So now we can go to the task of getting rid of 10 million tons of material in the middle. And I sort of like the 40-degree gouge for that. And I pretty much make a cone right down the middle. Fairly good sized cone. That was fairly dry. It's actually heating up my fingers. Chips coming off of there. This is not going to be a real thin bowl. Probably about there, maybe. Now I'll come out here and I'll pick up this cut right on the edge of this. And we'll make this start to swoop in. And then we'll come back and clean up, cut. So we're taking a little bit more off than what we really needed to. Left a little ridge in there. Right about 3/8 of an inch thick or so right there. I'm not worried, this is sort of chewed up on the edge here, but that's fine. That's just a little bit of sanding right there. I'll take care of that edge. It's really very difficult to cut that nice and cleanly and make it round. I'm going to go back and pick up the cut. You see there's a line right here. As I spin that around and look up around, you can see there's a definite line. That's a little hesitation mark. So that I want to clean up. And I want to make this a little bit more even in there. So I'll pick up the cut behind that little ridge. And then we'll go down across. Nice slow and steady pace. And stop short of the other one. And that feels good. Even though right there is a bad move to do. You really shouldn't. You should touch it over here. That way if something gets a hold of it, at least you have at least a nanosecond or two to try and get your fingers out of the road. So I think that looks okay right there. We'll start cleaning off some more material. Now the little ledges that I left in there come into play. I just go back and pick up right in where I left off at in there. And then we can come back the other way. Make it a little deeper. Really sort of need to go sharpen the tool. I just cut a couple miles of strip. I'm going to finish this last little bit of roughing out, and I'm going to either switch over to the other tool or I'll go sharpen it. Because I'm having to put a lot more force on it than what it should be. That's a good indication that it's getting dull. But I do like the 40-degree gouge up in that area, up in this topper area. It just works a little bit. It does a little cleaner cut. Not that the 60-degree won't cut it cleanly. Because it does. It cuts it just as clean. And that one is sharper. I'll make sure I didn't lay anything. I did lay something back there. Bad boy. It's no better. You start doing a bunch of bowls, you don't leave anything lay where the chips are going to go. Or you end up throwing things away. And you don't necessarily want to be buying new stuff all the time because you threw something away. This was not necessarily the most friendly shape to do. But I think what I'll do, I'm going to leave that alone on the inside. I'm going to come back to the outside and I'll do a little bit of cutting right here. There's kind of like a little hump. So I think we'll just proceed on down. Of course, now it sort of becomes a little bit of an issue of getting the tool rest in where you want it to be. I might have to actually sharpen up. Probably, I'm going to go back over to grind. I thought I heard something tick. There's a little knot in there. I'll probably get the sharpen the 5/8 gouges up too, because when we get out in here, we're going to get to where we're going to have too much tool overhang for the shorter or the smaller diameter gouge. The other thing, tool rests, I guess when it's set up for the 5/8 gouges rather than 1/2 inch, so them having to drop the handle considerably further than what I really need to get to cutting on center. I would much rather be actually cutting above center for the most part, and then lift the handle to get to the center. That not go deep? No. Something there that wanted to make the tool bounce. It's kind of odd. So I'm checking it because I figured I was actually making it thicker as I went down, which I am. I'm gonna go put a quick edge on this one. It's losing its stuff. I also shortened the bevel because I'm about ready to go around the corner. So the shorter the bevel is when I go around this corner, the easier it'll be. I need to pick up about up in here and make this. And stop just short of the other cut. Much cleaner cut. There's ridges out here, but that's always. I do have a hump right there though, so I gotta come back up in here and make a little. I don't want to leave a giant size hump, which I have right there. So where's our hump? Hump's there. So if I lay my tool right there, I'll know where to pick up the cut. Back up in here. And then we should be good. Good enough. Yep. So now it's kind of going to be a situation. We're going to get rid of the middle. Hopefully that one is sharp. That one away because we're done with that one. No, I have noise cancellation on it. Otherwise, it's too loud. And it's got enough of an edge on it, at least to start, anyhow. This is a bottom bowl gouge, specifically made and used basically just for the bottom. You see the curly Q shavings that end up on my arm. It does a beautiful job going across the bottom. You just have to be a little bit careful. I mean, that is clean as can be going across there, where the other ones are leaving fuzz. It's just a little. This one's actually a little bit harder to get used to using. I don't use it enough to really get good with it. You just gotta watch that I don't. It cuts so quickly, and I can get really close to the bottom in a really big hurry. So I'm sort of in some ways sort of flattening this out a little bit. I can still use my tenant down there as the foot. Not necessarily what I wanted to do. And I may have to go back in there with my other gouge, because there's where I have the trouble with it. I have trouble going back up and picking up that little ridge. And we could be measuring that. That would make sense too. To make sure that we're not, yeah, we're all right. We're still 3/8 to a half an inch in there. So we're good. I think I got most of it. Tiny little bit of evidence of that there. So I think we'll just take the rest of it down. The thing that makes it sort of more difficult is the fact that it will take a big chunk of material at one time. I gotta come back up here one more time and take that last little bit out. And it's a very heavy tool. It's a 3/4 inch bar to start with, and the handle, I think this thing weighs in at about 5 pounds. I can't even get the whole thing on the screen for you to show you how big it is. The handle's like 28 inches long. It has lead shot in it. It'll literally hang over you can hang over the tool rest back up in here without it vibrating or chattering or anything like that. It is a beast, but I don't use it that often. I don't I don't necessarily do real big bowls. That's really what it's designed for. Still thinking I would like to take a little bit more out of that center. I don't really want it to be I don't want it to be flat in there. And right now it's sort of flat. And I would much rather leave that little pimple sticking up in the bottom than to push through it and break it off and make a divot rather than a pimple. That little dimple right there, that will disappear in about 2 seconds flat with the sandpaper. So now that we've made a big mess, bowl turning is very messy. I can tell you that much. Makes a lot of mess in a big hurry, but it's also fun. How are you this evening? So now we can go ahead and sand this. We'll sand the inside, and then we'll see. What time is it? It's 9 o'clock. We could probably quit at that, but we're gonna sand. I'm gonna sand the inside of it. Oh, sorry. This particular birch, this stuff has been around for a while. It's actually been around for a couple years, laying in half logs. So it's not super. It's not real wet. I probably won't. I'll sand it tonight, but I won't put any finish on it probably till maybe next week or something like that. I'll finish it up. Have to decide whether I'm going to finish it. I'll probably finish it with the Parfix CA. But as far as I'm concerned, that's just as food safe as anything else. It is just plastic. I'll leave the soft pad on. I'm going to cut the speed in about half, about 500 RPM, something like that. I'm going to start out here at the edge. It's kind of an odd place to start, but I just want to round that over. That way when I get carried away on the inside here and touch it, it doesn't cut me. You see how quickly that little pimple disappeared. Now we're going to get rid of any of the tool marks. There's a nasty tool mark in a place that's a little hard to reach. At least it looks like a tool mark. There's definitely a line. Work on that a little bit harder. There it goes. It's interesting when you're sanding, you can see more than what you think you can ever see. It's like there I had a shiny spot, so you knew there was something there that didn't go. A little bit of a, I'm going to sand a little bit harder. There's a little bit of a ridge right there. I'm not going to go back and recut it, but it's definitely not, when I run my fingers down, I can feel there's a little bit of a hump in that area. Right in that area here. So I'm going to mark it a little bit. We'll know right where it's at. Try one other thing and not use the soft pad. I'll make the sanding a little bit more aggressive right through there. Like I said, this stuff is very soft. So that little bit of more forceful sanding right there took care of that. So let's try it without the soft pad for the next grit or two. I'm not putting a bunch of force down either. I'm just sort of letting it float along. Let the sandpaper do its job. I'm going to come back across the center and get to the center, and I'm going to use the bottom part of the pad and come back up this side. which is going to make it be pretty much almost like sanding in forward and reverse in the same pass. It works quite well. I don't remember who told me to or said about doing it that way, but it does work. It does work well. So that was 180. This is 220 or 240, whichever it is. And I'm using the paintbrush to clean off any of the dirt and debris. More importantly, any pieces of sandpaper grit that came off could lay on that surface. And you go to the next grit and you're just making the same scratches all over again. You don't see any deep scratches that I need to be concerned about. So we're in good shape. I also went back and put my software interface pad on for the last two grits. Last but not least is 400. Actually, I do think I have some 600. I'm going to hit it with 600. And the big reason that I sanded this edge when I first started is because of touching it. Well, my hand has touched that numerous times. So if I would have left that ragged edge up there, I would probably be bleeding right about now. So that's through to 400. I do have some 600. Yes, I do. Like I say, this white birch is very, very soft. Actually, that's the other pad. Might already be a 600 on there. And it's a 400. That takes care of our sanding for the inside. And take a paper towel and clean it up. Paper towel is a wonderful thing to remove the dust and dirt out of there. You can see it turns it yucky. So silky smooth, which is what you want, or what I want. Nicely finished. And it is 9:15, so I think I'm going to call it a day. But before I do that, I might as well finish the inside, or put the finish on the inside. And then all I have to do is sand the outside, figure out what I'm going to do with the foot, and it'll be complete. Which probably won't be till next week. Maybe. Yeah, probably. I don't too often do a whole lot of things during the week. What I'm going to use, this one I found that the 3460 in the Parfix CA glue does a better job on this white birch because it is so soft and so porous. So it just seems like it does a better job. So what I've done is I made a little pad there. I have a piece of polyester felt in the middle of it, rolled up. The felt's going to act like a little reservoir, makes it a little less messy to use. Gloves are definitely a must. Get that big old hose out of the road. So this is the product that we're talking about. It's a no odor CA glue with this one here has about a 45 to 50 second time delay on it before it starts to set up. So we're going to spin it around. We want to hit the end grain first. Going to put lots on our pad. And we're going to hit our end grain because it's going to soak it right in. As you can see, it just on this birch, it just literally disappears. So flip around, do the other end grain first because that's going to take the most amount of material. Rub it in good, let it soak in. Now hit the rest. Side grain it'll still soak it in quite a bit, but not like the end grain does. We'll go back over the end grain again. Both end grains. Like I say, we have 50 seconds, between 45 and 50 seconds before it starts to set up. So it gives you lots of time to be able to do this. And we're going to get it done. It's going to be done in one coat, not like a pen and put a whole bunch of coats on and sand it back. This will be done in one. It'll be ready to be polished or buffed. The size of this bowl, it'll be buffed inside and out. If it's a little bit smaller, I'll use some of the polishing paste on the inside and then give it a little buff. Because when you get into the inside of a small bowl, the only thing you can use is those round balls, and I personally don't like how they work on the inside. They work harder, I think. It's just as easy to use some of the abrasive paste, the fine abrasive paste on it. It is still super glue. It's going to stick to your fingers or anything else it comes in contact with. So at this point, we're going to use a clean paper towel, and we're going to get the excess, any excess that's laying on the surface. I want to get rid of because it'll bead up. Like I say, this white birch, it's like you almost can't put enough on. That's why I've done some with the 3408, which is the thinner one yet. But when I use it on this white birch, it just doesn't do what I want it to do. So I use the one that's this is the next level up thickness wise. So it just, to me, it just does a nicer job. And that's it. 24-hour cure time. I am going to hit it with a little bit of activator, which is the activator that's made by them is heptane based. So once across, once back, about 18 inches away. I just want the little mist to land in there, start the curing process. And then we'll get it off of there, just in case. I mean, this is not thin enough. We will probably, my guess is I probably will make this foot into like a little beaded foot and leave it. That'll make it sit up off the table a little bit better. That's what it looks like finished up. The only difference between now and totally finished will be the fact that it will have a shine to it. It'll have a nice high, like a high satin shine, semi-gloss shine to it when I'm done. And we could go back. Let me switch scenes so you can actually see the dumb thing. I always forget that I was doing, everything was little earlier. And now I went back to big. So let's go to there. So that gives you an idea what it's going to look like. Bring it in a little bit. Like I say, a 24-hour cure time. Come tomorrow night this time, then I could buff it, and it would be done. No waiting for weeks for something to cure. Very simple product to use. It's dry to the touch now. It's not going to stick to your fingers. Kind of impressed with this white birch. I have quite a bit more of it. Got a lot of black streaking and some dark streaking in it. The back will be the same way. Looks very plain and boring until you put the finish on it. And the finish sort of brings out the colors a little bit more. But that'll make a nice salad bowl, I guess. Try and do some things that are more useful and decorative. So on the rim it's about 11 1/4 by about 3 5/8 off the table. And half a garbage bag full of chips laying on the floor at my feet, but it is what it is. So anybody have any questions? Comments, questions? This is also being broadcast on YouTube as well, under Kapps Kreations. If you wanted to go back and see what we did earlier, you're more than welcome to it. It stays there on YouTube. That's what I like about YouTube. But if you go over there and watch it on YouTube, I would ask that you hit that cute little button that says subscribe so that my YouTube channel can continue to grow. Other than that, I'm going to see if we can find somebody to raid. And there's probably, oh, Mechaform's on tonight. He's just chatting. Well, we'll send you over and you can chat with Mechaform. He's an interesting gentleman from Canada. Yep, have a good evening. Actually, I need to stop.